Howdy. Welcome to the Tony DeGonia Show. We're coming to you straight out of East Texas. So find you a spot where you get some good signal, grab you a glass of sweet iced tea, and get ready, because we're jumping in feet first. Good morning, everyone. This is Tony DeGonia, your host for the Tony DeGonia Show. Today is Monday, June the 4th, 2018. This is episode number 18. Yeah, I think it's 18. I don't know. I don't do very good keeping up with this stuff. I should probably write it down, but, it's more fun to just kind of go by the seat of your pants sometimes. Anyway, we've got two or three things to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about SpaceX, because I'm absolutely enamored with SpaceX. I have got to go out to the SpaceX facility in McGregor, Texas, and watch those guys do some rocket engine testing in the past. I'm not going to tell you any more details than that because it's kind of classified, but it was pretty cool. Got to meet with some of the chief engineers and some of the chief security guys out there, and it was a lot of fun. Very, very surprising when you're in the middle of a presentation and they start testing a rocket that goes in a spaceship. And that was just one rocket. They were actually testing 9 rockets, or they were actually putting 9 rockets on the next launch, and just one rocket shook a 250,000 square foot building like it was a ragdoll. So, like I said, cool stuff, man. Really, really cool stuff. Anyway, this next article is kind of interesting because it came about in conversation with my new employer, with my direct manager, as a matter of fact. As you all know, we're way out in East Texas. I live way out in East Texas, and so sometimes internet is not easy to come by, especially fast internet. So I use a satellite internet, and so my boss was basically telling me that, satellite internet's no good for VoIP, and it's no good for, for streaming and for, VPNs and things like that. And, I used to be a VoIP engineer, and I've been doing VPNs for over a decade now. And I just have never had any real trouble running VoIP over satellite. There is some latency issues in the beginning, but once you get everything sunk up, it's a synchronous connection. It's TCP, so everything seems to run pretty well. So I plugged in a VoIP phone. I had a circuit that was 1 meg up, 25 megs down. It was pretty clean, very little jitter, no lost packets, nothing like that to speak of. And my VoIP phone works great. But I was having a lot of trouble not connecting to the VPN so much as connecting to an application on a distant end, which turned out that it was an application that was based on Microsoft Access. And if anybody knows about Microsoft Access, it's pretty much a dead database system. Microsoft uses it primarily for training because it does, it's great for little bitty small applications, but nothing of any consequence to speak of. Back in the day, it was the way to go before SQL was the beast that it is now. and then, before MySQL and NoSQL and, all of those other relative databases that are out there. But essentially, it's pretty useless these days, especially if you're going to try and do anything with it across the web or anything like that. So anyway, we got back and forth with the conversation and comparing speeds and feeds and stuff like that. And so on Friday, I did an upgrade to my satellite internet connection. And I will tell you that I use Viasat. It was Exceed, it's now Viasat, and I got on their Viasat 2 satellite, so I had to move the satellite dish around on my house and put on some new parts and a new modem and everything like that. And so now I'm getting 5 megs up and 125 meg down. The latency is still high. I mean, it goes a long way, all the way out of the atmosphere and back, in order to transport data that far. So, my boss was still kind of giving me a hard time and telling me how it wasn't good for this and wasn't good for that. The thing is I started looking up the specs on what VoIP required. And so essentially VoIP requires a stable circuit. Low latency is good, but it's not a huge factor because it's synchronous. And then a jitter of less than 100 milliseconds. Ideally, in a perfect world, you'd want it below 30 milliseconds, but even up to 30 milliseconds, you still get pretty good performance. So I decided to do that test on my new internet connection because, hey, I'm a techie, right? So the results I got were, I was getting right about 5 megabytes up and 100, and I think that time I was getting 112 to 115 megabytes down. Now my latency was high. It was like 625 milliseconds. But my packet loss was 0%, and my jitter was exactly 30 milliseconds. So what does that mean? Well, that means I can make a phone call on my VoIP phone, and it works. We have no garbly-goo mess. We have no real issues as far as that goes. I can connect to the VPN in Tampa. It works fine most of the time. Not real happy with the VPN concentrator they have. I don't think it works as well as some others do, but hey, who am I to complain? I just work here. But I still have trouble with that stinking application, and it's because of the way that the application talks back and forth. So anyway, that we had a series of emails going back and forth, and they were pretty interesting. Nobody's upset or mad or anything like that. They're just a bunch of techies just going back and forth. So one of the guys that was in the conversation jumps in and says, "Hey, why can't we just shoot to a closer satellite?" Well, first response was there aren't any. But there are some closer satellites. And so I started doing some research on that because, being the huge fan of SpaceX that I am, and Elon Musk and all of his evil genius, I say that he's not an evil genius, but he looks like he could play a really cool villain in a movie. Actually, he's more like the real life Tony Stark in my eyes. This guy just does stuff. He says, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and then it just freaking happens. You can't hardly beat that. I mean, if he were to come out with an Iron Man suit, that would be freaking awesome. I don't expect that he will. It's a little too much like the movies, but this is a guy that launched a $80,000 car into space, along with a rocket and everything else. So you know, you can't hardly beat this guy. He is something else. So I started doing a little research, and here's what I found. Back in February, Elon Musk's Falcon 9 launched the first of 11,925,000 SpaceX internet satellites. Now that's interesting to me because right now there's only about, I want to say about 2,500 satellites orbiting the Earth as we speak. So what that means is when he gets done, he's going to put 6 times as many near Earth orbiting devices in our atmosphere, or just outside of our atmosphere, than we currently have. And so there's a lot of scientists that are really, really concerned with this. And, you know, for good cause. I mean, there's more and more stuff. What happens if they run into each other? I mean, it could become like, you know, just this huge pinball game, I think is what a lot of people are afraid of. But I don't think so. Because I don't think Elon Musk, I don't think that he doesn't think of these things. I think when he decides to do something, you know, he puts everything on the table. So the article is entitled Elon Musk's Falcon 9 just launched the first of 11,925 SpaceX internet satellites. It was written by Christiana Reedy and Abby Norman for Futurism.com, and this was written on February 22nd, 2018. So this is not, I mean, this is 4 months old, but it's still really interesting. So the SpaceX satellites today, Falcon 9 reusable rocket launch may not be quite as headline making as the Falcon Heavy's epic send-off a few weeks earlier, but it was nothing to sneeze at either. After all, Elon Musk does not simply launch a rocket. No, the SpaceX CEO prefers to break records, or better yet, set them. While the primary mission on Thursday's launch was to carry Spain's newest Earth observation satellite, known as PAZ, the rocket's payload also included SpaceX's first 2 internet satellites. It's the pair of spacecraft that would kick off a new phase for the company and for the global internet as we know it. Musk has been working on somewhat secretive plans to launch internet satellites into orbit for a couple of years now. Back in 2016, the FCC approved launches of 4,425 SpaceX internet satellites. The company then jacked that number up to almost 12,000, 6 times the number of active satellites currently orbiting Earth. According to the data from the Union of Concerned Scientists satellite database, there are 1,738 active satellites in orbit right now. Even if you add the 2,600 something inactive satellites, that would still make SpaceX's presence 3 times that of all other spacecraft in orbit. At first glance, it may not seem as impressive as launching a Tesla Roadster in space, but these satellites are pretty hefty. They're roughly car-sized, about 390 kilograms or 850 pounds, and will eventually fill out SpaceX's proposed constellation of satellites that would beam high-speed internet back down to Earth. To that end, hitching a ride with PAZ are 2 small telecommunications satellite prototypes, Microsat 2A and Microsat 2BR. They'll be the first of what SpaceX ultimately hopes will become 2 large groups of internet beaming satellites, each operating on a different radio frequency. And there is on the article on my website, there is a video for the launch of that SpaceX mission. Of the 12 grand, 4,425 SpaceX internet satellites will be positioned about 1,100 kilometers or 700 miles above Earth, and the other 7,518 will orbit just 300 kilometers or 200 miles above. The sheer number of satellites, their varying positions in orbit, and their beaming ability pose a formidable challenge for SpaceX. The company will need to ensure the satellites can coordinate with receivers on Earth, for one. Then there's the more fundamental question of how they'll manage to keep track of so many objects in orbit and prevent them from colliding. But if he can actually assemble the fleet of satellites, Musk says the network, formerly known as Starlink, according to the Wall Street Journal, could provide internet to virtually any location on Earth. Such a network would lift the burden of developing internet infrastructure off the developing world, in which less than half the population has ready access to the internet. When Musk initially requested permission from the FCC to start this project in 2015, he said at SpaceX Seattle that the goal for the network would be to handle more than half of long-distance internet traffic. That would allow faster and more direct communication between different countries than is currently possible, Musk said. That said, the impact on local internet communications would be less dramatic. Starlink would probably handle only 10% business to consumer direct, leaving the other 90% of local access to fiber. But that reality could only be for the short term. We're really talking about something which is, in the long term, like rebuilding the internet in space, Musk said at SpaceX Seattle. And after today's successful launch, it seems like SpaceX is one step closer to doing just that. And at the bottom, there is a link to Futurism and that article there. So if you want to read it on their website, that's great. That's really cool. I was able to up my internet speeds to 125 meg down, 5 meg up, simply by going to a secondary satellite. And Viasat only has, I believe, 2 active satellites. They'll be launching a 3rd satellite in 2019. But these satellites are way farther up in space. So we're talking low orbit geosynchronous type satellites that Elon Musk is talking about. I think I was told once that the average round trip distance was somewhere around 30,000 miles, maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. It might be closer to 12,000, but still, that's a long way. So my question is, how is this going to affect other companies like a Viasat or some of their competitors? I think there's going to be huge competition in the industry, and I think we're going to see more and more people going to satellite-based type internet. I think part of the issue that we're going to run into, though, is higher latency rates because fiber optics as a whole, the principles of physics tend to be less damaging to fiber than they do to something that goes over the air. Atmosphere just seems to cause, I hate to say friction, but more resistance or more attenuation, whatever you want to call it, to radio shots like that. Whereas fiber is light-based. The speed of light versus radio waves seem to be a lot faster. And I'm not looking up and referencing a lot of stuff here, so I'm not going to give you a bunch of references and this and that, and MIT says this, and Harvard says that. I'm just not going to do that during this podcast. If it's something that you're interested in knowing more about, you can visit my website and send me a message, and I'll be glad to do another podcast to go into more detail just specifically on that. But I think we're going to be looking at a lot more of this coming up in the future. I see a new way of riding the internet, getting around on the internet. So like I said, huge fan of Elon Musk. I think he does a lot of great things. I think he's the real life Tony Stark. You gotta kind of love this guy. I'm sure he's difficult to work for, but I know from talking to his employees that he treats his people very, very well. Okay, so just a quick spot. I got my internet through country broadband out here in East Texas. So if you live out in the East Texas area and you're listening to this, I got the owner of country broadband is Stephen Jennings. He's a good friend of mine. He's been out a couple of times. He sells Exceed Internet, which is now Viasat. He also does Vivint and DirecTV. Remember, that's Country Broadband. Stephen Jennings is the owner. And you can reach him at his office on 903-705-1137 or via email at stephen@mycountrybroadband.com. Once again, that's Stephen, STEVEN, at mycountrybroadband.com. And I have no doubt that if you give Stephen a call, he will do you right. Nobody's perfect, but this guy does a great job. And I would recommend him to anybody. So, with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our next article. Being in the physical surveillance industry, the physical security industry, which is what I'm in, and I'm in the physical security industry because it's coming and colliding so heavily with cybersecurity and information technology infrastructure, that it's a great place for me to be. It's kind of ripe for the picking for an IT engineer to move from pure IT to kind of a hybrid IT / physical security role, because physical security is where it all started. Before there was cybersecurity, before there was IT, before there was any of those things, when people were still writing stuff down on pen and paper, we still had physical security. Before we had cameras, we had just pure security guards. Then we got cameras, and the cameras recorded DVRs and recording devices, and it wasn't very good. It was grainy, it was black and white, it was ugly, but it worked as best as it could. And then it's evolved. There's a natural progression, and it goes on and on and on. And just like telecom started off basically with a string and two cans, and it has evolved and evolved and evolved. And where's it went? Well, it's went towards the IT side of the house, the information technology, wide area networking, things like that, right? So physical security is evolving in that direction as well. And the reason that I'm here is because I feel like the things that I've done well in the past prepared me for a convergence of information technology and physical security, cybersecurity and physical security, networking and physical security, and sooner than anybody in the physical security industry wants to believe, and I mean way, way, way sooner than anybody in the physical security wants to believe, cloud and physical security. And my next article is about just that. And I've worked for two different physical security manufacturers now, and both of them, the first thing I've asked is, what are you guys doing in the cloud? And the answer's been both times, oh, well, the cloud, it really can't handle what we're doing. It's just, it can't do it. There's too much stuff. There's too much bandwidth to be taken up. There's, video's too heavy and this and that and the other. And my answer to that is bull malarkey. When you've got not just huge infrastructure, but almost infinite infrastructure like AWS and like, Microsoft and Google and a few others have, where they even combine their infrastructures and they play off of each other and they work together on things. You never don't have enough. There's always a way to find more infrastructure to support what you need to support. Now, you may not have infinite money to do it with. I can buy that. But for the use case, when you want to do it, and when there is a business case for it, it can be done. And so I hate hearing that folks can't do it, because I don't believe it, not for one single second. There's not a surveillance manufacturer out there, or physical security, access control, anything like that. None of those that can't be ran in the web. The only thing that would prevent them from being ran in the web would be the way they're designed. Software's written. But if it needs to run on Linux, Windows, anything like that, and it needs an IP address to get to it, you can use the web's infrastructure. If it needs acceleration, there's tons of different accelerators that sit within your grasp in AWS and Azure and Google that you can make use of. A lot of these web providers, they run on Citrix, or they run on Hyper-V, or they run on VMware, or they run on a combination of the three, so you can basically take your pick. And then from there, that's just your hypervisor. That's your very base platform. And from there, you build everything up. So I don't see, and I don't understand, and I think it's just short-sightedness on the side of the industry that says, oh, we can't make use of the cloud the way we want to. I would argue that point day in and day out and day in again, to the point of putting my money where my mouth is and going out there and making it work somehow, some way. So once again, you have any questions on this, go to my website, TonyDeGonia.com, hit the contact me page, shoot me a message. I'll get it. I'll be glad to chat with you about it. So the next article is about Amazon recognition. And so when I was in Tampa, not this past week, but the 2 weeks before, there was a big stir that came up about AWS's facial recognition tool being used by police. And so the title of the article, which was written on May 23rd, 2018 by James Sanders, says AWS facial recognition tool for police highlights controversy of AI in certain markets. Amazon's recognition is being tailored to law enforcement use case for real-time identification, prompting backlash from the ACLU. And so right now what I'm going to do is Amazon has actually put out a kind of a commercial that explains its recognition software or plugins and how they work and everything else. You can find the video on my website along with the article, but I just want to play you the audio from that video. I think it's pretty cool and I think you'll appreciate it.
Introducing Amazon Recognition Video, the easy-to-use API for deep learning-based analysis to detect, track, and analyze people and objects in video. Amazon Recognition Video allows customers to extract insight from video stored on S3, as well as real-time face recognition from live stream via Kinesis video streams. Amazon Recognition Video uses the visual, what, temporal, when, and motion from the video to deliver high-quality person tracking and detection of activities like running, playing soccer, or getting into a car. Amazon Recognition Video allows you to detect and recognize people in live stream videos. This allows developers to build critical and immediate responses to events previously impossible to do in a cost-effective way, replacing manually intensive and error-prone workflows. Real-time face recognition from video live stream enables secure smart home monitoring. Amazon Recognition Video's activity and label detection provides customers with rich metadata from video for search and filtering. Amazon Recognition Video extracts metadata from this video by detecting objects and activities. With Amazon Recognition Video, customers can now track persons even when faces aren't visible, track persons that are hidden, fully or partially, or leave the scene and reappear. Customers can now leverage Amazon Recognition Video's full understanding of video context to generate solutions for investigative response or event analysis. Recognize and track persons of interest from a collection of tens of millions of faces, even if they go in and out of frame. The Amazon Recognition Video API is powered by deep learning-based models, providing video analysis for object and scene detection, face detection, activity detection, unsafe content detection, face recognition, person tracking, celebrity recognition, and supporting real-time face recognition in live streaming. To get started, visit the AWS Recognition Management Console.
Wow, that's really cool stuff, guys. What a lot of you may not know is that I've actually been through all the coursework for the AWS Solution Architect Associate certification. So while I'm not the pinnacle of developers, I do have a pretty good, pretty deep understanding of what's going on with AWS and how to make a lot of that work and how to design solutions around the AWS framework. So the article, that was the advertisement in the article was AWS Facial Recognition Tool for Police highlights controversy of AI in certain markets. Amazon, it was written by James Sanders, May 23rd, 2018. Amazon's recognition is being tailored for law enforcement use cases for real-time identification, prompting backlash from the ACLU. Amazon is marketing AWS-based facial recognition service to law enforcement agencies that purports to be able to identify people in real time, according to documents obtained in a Freedom of Information Act request by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. The service, called Amazon Recognition, is claimed to be able to detect up to 100 faces per image, as well as compare images to databases of photos containing millions or tens of millions of faces, according to the documents. Amazon representatives cite law enforcement purposes as a common use case for the promotional video. Amazon is not being at all secretive about these practices. The press release from November 2017 noted that the Washington County, Oregon Sheriff's Office has been using Amazon Recognition over the past year to reduce the identification time of reported suspects from 2 to 3 days down to minutes, and had apprehended their first suspect within a week of adopting the technology. Amazon also lists the City of Orlando Police Department as a customer, which uses the technology for real-time detection and notification of persons of interest. The public disclosure is what prompted the ACLU to investigate Amazon's courting of law enforcement agencies. Documents uncovered by that organization indicate that Amazon is offering free consulting to law enforcement in Orlando for their deployment, and that the City of Orlando is using the technology to analyze footage for people of interest from cameras all over the city. Amazon has also touted the ability to use recognition with footage from police body camera systems, though the ACLU notes that mentions of this type of interaction were scrubbed from the AWS website after the ACLU raised concerns in discussions with Amazon, adding that this capability is still permissible under Amazon's terms of service. This change appears to be the extent of its response to our concerns, according to the ACLU. Naturally, using cloud services to build a panopticon is likely to generate concern among residents of the localities that have deployed the technology. Under optimal circumstances, this would be implemented following a referendum or, at a minimum, a period of public comment about combining surveillance technology with mass facial recognition. The ACLU sought documents indicating that any such outreach was attempted, though no documents were discovered. It does, however, point out the existence of an internal email from a Washington County employee stating the ACLU might consider this the government getting in bed with big data. A report in Motherboard notes that Amazon facial recognition technology has noticeable gaps in reliability, citing training documentation showing the software comparing a picture of O.J. Simpson with a picture of a white man with a mustache and long hair as a 93.53% match. Practically speaking, the only visual similarity between the two pictured men is that they both have faces. Amazon's courting of law enforcement appears at odds with their corporate values. The ACLU, alongside various other civil rights groups, including the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Human Rights Watch, underscores this in a letter to Jeff Bezos, noting that Amazon has opposed secret government surveillance and you have personally supported First Amendment freedoms and spoken out against the discriminatory Muslim ban. This is a growing problem across the technology industry. Google employees are calling on the company to stop their collaboration with the U.S. military on a project to analyze video taken from drones, while Google itself has scrubbed "Don't Be Evil" from the opening of their code of conduct. The growing concern of the use of such technologies highlights the potential controversy that could be caused by deploying artificial intelligence in both public and private sector. Organizations interested in the technology should take their deployment slowly, examining all possible ethical ramifications before moving forward. The big takeaways for tech leaders. Amazon is courting controversy by working with law enforcement to implement their recognition identification service. And in a training slide, Amazon recognition software was unable to correctly differentiate between O.J. Simpson and a mustachioed white man with long hair. You can view this article on Tech Republic. There is a link at the bottom of the page on my website where you'll find this. Gosh, let's talk about this for a second. This is Amazon's first whack at this. It's going to get better. And for anybody out there who doesn't think that local law enforcement is using facial recognition to identify people of interest, and that they're not using facial recognition to go after folks, the naivete in that thought process is beyond comprehension. Countries like Israel have been using long-range facial recognition for almost 20 years now. We're not talking looking at you from 300 feet away. We're talking 2 or 3 miles away, because they have cameras that will reach out that far. And once they pull that image in, they're able to compare that face, that image of that face, to known terrorists, known lawbreakers, known enemies of the state. This is something that I think people are scared of it because of Hollywood. Um, there's been movies out there where people are basically told they're guilty of a crime before they ever commit the crime. Um, things like that. I think it's more paranoia than anything. Um, I think with balances and counterbalances, I think the First Amendment is pretty safe. But I think that we have to do things in today's geopolitical and environment to protect ourselves. And I think this is just one of the ways that we can help law enforcement to do that. I mean, law enforcement gets such a bad rap as it is now, and has taken such a beating over the last 10 or 12 years. Um, you know, just because they're law enforcement, and with the political climate in the United States, they're not the bad guys. They're not there to take away our rights. As a matter of fact, it's their job to uphold our laws. Now, the great thing about the way our government works is that the police officers they enforce our laws, but they don't make our laws. And if you're convicted or if you're charged with an infraction of our law, it's not the law enforcement department that is responsible for deciding whether or not you're actually guilty of breaking that law. So for us to be concerned, to the point that this article states that we're concerned, it's a little premature, because in order for us to get convicted of something, first we have to do something wrong, then we have to get caught doing it wrong, then we have to be arrested for doing it wrong, then we have to be indicted for doing it wrong, and then we get to go to court, and unless you plead guilty or no contest, then you get a trial by jury of your peers, and you get the opportunity to defend yourself with an entirely different department than the law enforcement department, that is there to uphold the law. And while I would love to say that laws are always followed to the letter, sometimes they are deciphered by judges, and sometimes those judges decipher law based on political opinion, moral and ethical standards, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. And the only people that really do think it's a bad thing are the people that get in trouble and the moral and ethical opinion of the judge goes against their moral and ethical opinion. I don't think the law is a living document. I think it was designed to be the law of the land, that it was designed to be exactly what it is. I don't think that it changes with the environment or with the way society changes. I think if something was illegal in the 1700s, it's still illegal today if it's written into law, and it's still a law. Every day, our lawmakers go out at the local, state, federal level, make new laws that we have to follow. And, most people don't realize it, but they take away laws too. They take away laws that no longer are an issue in today's society. The first 10 or so are the big ones. there's a number of laws there that are inalienable and can't be taken away. But there's also a whole bunch that do change by definition, by political climate, by societal climate, things like that, right? So, um, and then when you look at all of this, Amazon, they're just starting out in this, and I hate to break it to you guys, but right here in America, right here in the United States, in your communities, um, the police are already using facial recognition. They're already using facial recognition, maybe not real time. That's pretty expensive. But they're using it to build cases. It's admissible in court. The FBI crime lab has facial recognition. So local law enforcement can call upon them for different, forensic type things. And that's one of those forensic things that they can do. So don't kid yourself if you think that this is the first time anything like this has ever happened, because you are absolutely wrong. And it would be sad for you to go around thinking that. What I will tell you is real simple. Don't break the law. Don't become a person of interest. And then you don't got nothing to worry about, because the police ain't going to be looking for you that way. I know that sounds kind of oversimplified and maybe a little stupid, but is what it is. If you break the law, they're going to come looking for you. If they have a picture of you, they're going to load it into a database, which the FBI already has. The local states have. The local municipalities have access to it. Hell, some security companies have access to it. They know how to find you. Even if they don't have facial recognition, they know how to find you. Most police departments have entire internet, squads or sections that all they do is comb the internet to find bad guys, to find out their movement, to find out where they're going, what they're doing, when they're doing it. Because let's face it, a lot of bad guys are stupid. They like to brag. They have big egos. They put a lot of shit online. I mean, you see it on TV all the time and in the movies and everything. If you think some of that stuff, a lot of stuff you see in TV and movies is fake and not realistic, but some stuff very realistic, very, very realistic, and very accurate, right? So don't think, I know of multiple police departments right now here in the state of Texas, in East Texas, that they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that all they do is comb the internet. They do stings via the internet. And I even know someone who got caught up in an internet sting and got 40 years in prison. It's a sad thing. But had they been doing the right thing, they wouldn't be in trouble. So with that, I've got one final article, and I know we're sitting at about 48 minutes into our podcast, so I'll make this one quick, and I think you'll like this one and find it a little bit funny, because just almost as soon as the Amazon thing came out, with folks being worried about facial recognition, another group started working on this. It's a filter, and basically you can apply this filter to your photos, and the photos become indecipherable to facial recognition software. This was written by Dan Rubitsky. I got this off of Futurism as well, and it's on my website. You can check it out there. You can go to the Futurism website and check it out. And so this filter makes your photos indecipherable for facial recognition software, written by Dan Rubitsky. To help people hold on to whatever remains of their privacy, tools have emerged intended to trip up facial recognition AI. Real-world products like face-off hats, that's a physical hat with a trippy pattern, and 3D printed masks, full face scanning software by presenting optical illusions to the cameras we encounter during our everyday lives. A surprising number of people from social media platforms to police surveillance systems are very interested in what you look like. That means companies are able to learn a lot about you, your appearance, age, ethnicity, and more. Whenever your face pops up, while this is generally for the sake of targeted ads, it can also put people at risk of privacy violations or identity theft. But those tactics are to throw off the cameras. What happens if a photo of you somehow makes it online? Soon there may be a filter to keep AI from spotting your face, those photos that slip past. Engineers from the University of Toronto, of course it's a college, have built a filter that slightly alters photos of people's faces to keep facial recognition software from realizing what it's looking at. The AI-driven filter looks for specific facial features and changes certain pixels. People can barely see a difference, but any AI scanning the image can't even tell that it's looking at a face. To build its filter, the team pitted two neural networks against each other. The first AI system was tasked with identifying facial features from a set of hundreds of photos, and the second algorithm was responsible for altering the photos to the point that they no longer looked like faces to the first. The two AI systems went back and forth, gradually getting better at their tasks until the researchers determined that the filter was probably effective enough to work on commercial facial recognition software. In a test, the filter reduced the accuracy of the face detecting software from correctly spotting just about every face it was shown to only being able to recognize 1 in 200. Facial recognition AI was also suddenly unable to recognize the emotion or ethnicity of the person pictured, which for some reason tech companies felt was important to be able to do. This probably isn't the kind of filter likely to pop up on Instagram, especially since Instagram's parent company, Facebook, is storing your intimate, personal selfies to make sure no one else uploads them. But the engineers who developed this filter hope to release it via an app in the near future. Once again, this was found on Futurism, and there's a link at the bottom of the article on my page that will take you to the Futurism article. And it's just very interesting that just as soon, it seems like, as somebody comes out with a high-end AI solution, well, gosh, people are going to start writing things to prevent these AI solutions from working. And I understand, I get it. But it's a great place to be. It's a great time to be in technology because it's so much fun to watch all these people go back and forth, and you get to learn from it. I love to learn stuff, and so you get to learn from it day in and day out, and so if you're into that sort of thing, it's a wonderful time to be in technology. If this stuff scares you, then there's not anything I can say that's not going to make you feel any better, because it's not going away anytime soon. It's not going to get better anytime soon. I mean, the AI will get better. The artificial intelligence, the solutions will get better, and they'll be able to recognize you better, faster, quicker, and more mobily than they currently are able to do. But if you think it's cool and the kind of the ground rules on it all, then you're probably good to go. You probably don't have a whole lot to worry about. So I wouldn't sweat it. Just sit back, watch these guys do what they're going to do. It's a hoot to watch them because there's so much competition, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. So we're at the end of our time, and once again, I want to remind you about my high-speed internet. My guy out here in East Texas, his name's Stephen Jennings. He's with Country Broadband. He is the owner. Remember, he sells Viasat or Exceed, Vivint Smart Home, DirecTV. You can reach him at 903-705-1137. And he can get you on the new Viasat 2 satellite because they've got a big promotion going on. Viasat does, basically, where you can switch over for free. That's what he got for me. It was a pretty cool deal. And it is just smoking fast. I mean, I'm able to do all of this. My wife's in the living room. I'm in the lab. She's in the living room, streaming Hulu or whatever. I'm sitting in here recording this, about to send it up line, and we are not having any internet issues. It's great. So anyway, once again, Country Broadband, Stephen Jennings, he's the owner. Give him a call, 903-705-1137, or email him, Stephen at mycountrybroadband.com. That's Stephen, Steven, at mycountrybroadband.com. All right, so with that, I bid you adieu, and you know the line. We'll see you down the road.
Well, y'all, looks like the show's over. So check us out on our website, www.tonydegonia.com. Then click on the Tony DeGonia Show button at the top of the page. You can also check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, or Spotify, or any of our social media outlets, which you can find on our website at www.tonydegonia.com. Hey, thanks for listening in, and we'll see you down the road.